Shalom, Kal Halaim La, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops at the great millstone who do rule and teach well. Shalom, peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. So it's the brother Azariah back with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And I want to touch on this redacted video, kind of do a spiritual commentary on what's going on in the earth, and mainly with these wars, because there's a lot of wars going on right now. There's a lot of potential wars that are about to pop off. And, this is a sign that the end is near. The fact that you have all these nations gathered together, and that I brought out in an article that these nations, they pretty much not even talking about peace anymore. Peace is like off the table. It's pretty much all guns blazing now, So we see there's a certain spirit that are on the leaders of these nations to continue this push. And we know this is because there's an active Depop agenda in which they want to destroy a certain number of people off the earth. And one of the ways they're going to do it is by war. Because even right now, I don't want to jump the gun, but this whole Ukraine war, Israel, Gaza, a lot of people are being deleted in these conflicts. And this also serves the interests of the world globalist elite, because this plays into their NWO agenda by deleting so many people. They're also going to bring new diseases. They're going to, poison the atmosphere, poison the water. We know what the scriptures say about that, you see. But in today's time, things are very critical. And a lot of people don't even know how bad things are about to get. They talking about a cyber attack, a blackout. You see, last week, AT&T had that the service was down, and then Elon Musk, he made a tweet shortly before that happened and said this is a test. So a lot of things are coming down the pipeline. Now is the time to be more vigilant than ever, get closer to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and put off that weak nature. Because in the blink of an eye, you can wake up tomorrow morning and it's a complete 180. Like the power is off, everything is shut down. You got martial law in the streets. These things can happen very quickly. And people don't consider these things because they are not aware, they're not watching for the signs of the times. See, they're not redeeming the times, man, because these days are very evil, as the scriptures say. But let me go ahead and play this video. Now, this segment of the redacted video, they're going into what's going on in Israel and Gaza, which that's a horrible situation in and of itself, but at the same time, we understand that this is a means to an end, okay? Because before the true Israelites can get back in the land, the Lord has to cleanse that land of the heathen. And Netanyahu pretty much openly declared that what's going on in Gaza is an ethnic cleansing of that land. Well, guess what? Not only are the Palestinians, okay, which those are Arabs, but not only are they going to be cleansed from the land, but them damn small hats, they're going to be cleansed from the land too. And the true Israelites, the so-called Negro, Hispanic, and Native American, are going to be set back up, all right, over the land, once these heathen are taken out the way. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Over the weekend, that total victory in the territory will come within weeks once the offensive begins. This is not even it. As horrible as it feels right now in the images that we see, it would seem they're still squatting low to jump high.
Right. I like that, squat low to jump high. We're going to hear from Netanyahu in a second here, but this is what happened yesterday. Take a look at your images here. Kids are out flying kites. This is this is right there's the border wall you can see in Rafah. So kids were out flying kites because what else are they going to do? And Israeli Defense Forces decided to launch white phosphorus attacks on the people gathered there. And of course, burning many tents to the ground. White phosphorus, of course, is internationally banned. We're not allowed to use a white phosphorus. It's illegal. But come on, what does the rule of law mean in 2024? Not much. White phosphorus is a chemical compound that is self-igniting, so when it contacts air or oxygen, it's hot enough.
Now, look at what's going on, right? So they're basically saying that when you're going to war with people, with different nations, there's a certain code of ethics in war, right? There's certain things you're not supposed to do. And in the case of Israel Gaza, the small hats are actually dropping white phosphorus explosive bombs on the Palestinians, which, as Clayton Moore said, these things are illegal. You can't use these things in war. But the type of time that the Israelis are on right now, they don't care about the rules of war. See, they don't care about ethics and, code of law. No, they're looking to take over by any means. You see, and this is why these wars that are going to jump off large scale later on this year are going to be so crucial, man, because it's pretty much going to be no holds barred. It's going to be all out war, take no prisoners, man. Like, it's going to be very nasty. Okay. It's very nasty already, but it just goes to show you that these small hats, man, they have a zero compassion. Like, they really look at them Palestinians like beasts. That's how they treating them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they violating, human rights. Even the aid, the food that was sent to Gaza, that's been cut off. And the food that did make it there, they've confiscated it and are now actually selling the food, man. You see, so that's why there's widespread famine in Gaza. And we're going to, watch a little bit more, but it gets even worse.
Enough to burn anything it touches, which becomes fuel for the fire, like human skin, clothing, tents.
Well, what do you think this phrase means? That we will maintain operational freedom. It means you will not be telling us what to do, period. We don't care who says boo, how powerful they are. We don't give an F. We're going to do what we want. Operational freedom.
So before this interview, and you can watch it in Netanyahu's face, like he's like, I run the United States. He's like, I tell U.S. Congress what to do. Joe Biden is a meat puppet. I control the show. I'm Benjamin Netanyahu. I do everything. He's in total control. And watch him in this interview. He's basically telling, we're not going to be told what.
And even Netanyahu, he's a puppet. See, he's not running nothing, man. Whether it's Joe Biden or it's Netanyahu, they're all doing the bidding of the world banking elites. That's who's funding these wars. See, that's who's giving these certain nations artillery, manpower, and the funding necessary to carry out these wars large scale. Because see, even when you look at it, the Palestinians, they don't have a standing military. They don't have tanks and aircraft and things of that nature. But that's why they getting destroyed, man. Like, and then the Israelis, once again, they're not playing by the rules of war. Like, they're bombing hospitals. They're deleting men, women, young men, women, and children. Okay, which that's a violation of code of ethics of war. But again, they don't give a damn. You see, because Netanyahu, he said that, listen, we must win by any means necessary. This war is not going to stop. And even when they went to the UN, the General Assembly, they actually shot down the proposition for a ceasefire. And Netanyahu said, listen, we don't want a ceasefire. We need to, as he put it, deal with the terrorists, deal with Hamas, which we know since the very beginning that this thing is not about Hamas. It was never about Hamas. You see, Hamas is just a boogeyman that's being thrown out there for the real agenda of what they want, which is to once again ethnically cleanse the land of the Palestinians, take that land over, and as Netanyahu said, to control the whole of the Middle East region. You see, this is what's really going on. This is why this war is not going to stop until, and ultimately it's going to lead to the battle of Armageddon. But as the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw them out. So what Israel is doing in the land, that's pissing off the neighboring Muslim nations around. And see, this is why leading up to this World War III, they're talking so much about Iran. They're talking about India. They're talking about Saudi Arabia and Yemen and these different nations, that are, mainly Muslim countries. They're going to come against the West, man. They're all going to converge upon the land to do war in the valley of Yahweh Shappai, and that's where they're all going to be judged. So you have to understand biblical prophecy to know what this is all leading to. you know. So the Lord is setting this thing up beautifully, man. You know, but this even goes to show you further that Esau, he can't be satisfied. You know, it tells you that in Habakkuk 2:5 that, you know, he is as death and cannot be satisfied, man. You know, here it is. This man got the whole earth. He controls the policy. He tells the nations what to do, but he can't be satisfied. He can't just be content with what he already has. No, he has to control the whole of the Middle East. No, he has to control the whole of the earth. You see? Even though he already does, but he wants complete control. That's what we're talking about. He wants complete control to the point where no one can buck up against him. No one can say anything against this damn devil, man. See, that's the type of world that he wants. All right. And if he was left to have his way, then he would accomplish that. But see, the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, has set a bounds where Esau can't pass. So he's not going to go past that certain boundary. You know what I'm saying? But he's trying to nonetheless. You see? And this all goes back to Genesis 27, where it says that, you know, Esau, that he shall live by the sword. That was his blessing. So ever since this man has been in rulership, he's lived by the sword. He's lived by warfare. That's all that he knows. You see? And this war, you know, him living by the sword, he's going to come down on that even heavier in America once this martial law takes place, once the blackout happens. You know what I'm saying? Because there's going to be a very violent takeover of America. Why do you think all these paid mercenaries, which are being labeled as migrants, are in America? They've been paid here. They've been given $10,000 on debit cards to come here and tear some stuff up. So again, we are in some very perilous times, man. Okay, as it says in Timothy's second Timothy's, you know, perilous times shall come. Let's continue on.
What to do by anybody. This is what we're going to do. Listen to his response about how long this will take and what's about to happen in Rafah to these people.
But understand that unless we have total victory, we can't have peace. We can't leave Hamas in place. We can't leave a quarter of Hamas battalions in Rafah and say, well, that's fine.
On the issue of the hostages, as you know, time is of the essence here. So if this deal happens and there are 6 weeks of calm that go with it, does that provide an opening to end this war, or will you still go into southern Gaza, into Rafah, regardless?
Yeah, well, victory is within reach, and you can't have victory until you eliminate Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization that, once we begin the Rafah operation, the intense phase of the fighting is weeks away from completion. Not months, weeks away from completion. And that is, we've already destroyed 18 out of the 24 Hamas terrorist battalions. So we have and 4 of them are concentrated in Rafah. We can't leave the last Hamas stronghold without taking care of it. Obviously, we have to do it. But understand, too, that I've asked the army to submit to me a double plan. First, to evacuate, to enable the evacuation of the Palestinian civilians in Gaza, and obviously, second, to destroy the remaining Hamas battalions. That gets us a real distance towards the completion of our victory. And that we're not going to give it up.
We're not going to give it up.
Once we get started, he says, once the intense part hasn't started.
Yeah, well, my point is, the intense part hasn't started. Like we haven't even seen the intense part yet. That's why I'm saying all the world right now is paying attention to this. Ireland paying attention to this. Countries across Europe are paying attention to this and saying, enough is enough here. This is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Go ahead, Philip.
I want to know.
And that's what they want. That's exactly what they want to happen. See, they want the bloodbath. You see, because this meets their ends of reducing humanity down to 500 million, taking more control, seizing people's rights, to the point where you're going to have no rights. See, in this new world that the elites are creating, they don't want you to have a say so. They don't want you to ask any questions. See, they just want you to lay down. All right. And not fight at all. And, through all these wars and disease that they're going to bring, this is what's going to happen. People, it's going to get to a point where the earth is going to be in such a chaotic state that people are going to be begging the powers that be for some sort of relief, to bring them a solution to where they can sleep good at night. You see? And that's going to come in the form of the NWO, the MOT to the B, everything digital. We always speak on it, man. But, these wars, serve a purpose for these damn devils. Okay, and when you even look in the comments, they were saying like, Benjamin Netanyahu is pure evil. You know what I'm saying? And indeed he is, because even when you look at it, the whole state of Israel, that was established because of what Hitler did to the small hats, during World War II, right? Well, it's ironic that now Netanyahu, he's in the same state as a Hitler type figure, and he's doing to the Palestinians what Hitler allegedly did to the small hats. So it's nothing but degeneracy, complete hypocrisy, and the world is seeing this, man. Everyone is watching what's going on, and again, this is why this is all leading up to the battle of Armageddon. The least of the flock, which is Israel, is drawing out the bigger guns. Now let me jump to about the 1 hour 20-minute mark, because this is where they start getting into Ukraine, because this whole Ukraine war is a failure. And even when you get into the time that we're in now, this is the end of the rulership of Esau Edom. And we know that according to the vision of Daniel, that we're in the rulership of the last beast, okay, which is an extension of Rome. All right, because during the 400s AD, the Western Roman Empire fell. Then during the Renaissance period, they came back into power, colonized the fourth part of the earth, which America is a part of. Okay, now you have the NATO and the EU, which is the beast and the whore. Okay, which America is the whore that rides the beast. Okay, but all of this came out of the ancient Roman Empire. All right, that's the point. But when you consider Rome, the ultimate end of Rome ended violently. Okay, the Roman Empire, it did not end peacefully, man. Like, the end of the Roman Empire went out by violence, you see. And one of the characteristics of the ancient Roman Empire, which you see in America today, is that they had many ongoing wars. The wars were just nonstop. Okay, to the point where you had many civil wars that happened in Rome, Salakia, before the fall came. And even at the time where Rome was invaded, the people were still divided. You see, so it was just easy at that point for the barbarians to come in and take over and just, destroy Rome, or Western Rome, should I say. And the same thing is going to happen now, and let's go to it real quick. Okay, this is a list of Roman external wars. Now, you can go all the way back to the beginning of Rome, like the 8th century, which it wasn't too many wars going on, because this is when they was first getting established. But as you go on, like, Rome reached its height during the 1st century AD. You see, in all these wars, man, look, the 2nd century BC, all these wars. Look at this. All these wars that was going on. The 1st century, Roman campaigns in Germania, Battle of Weser River, conquest of Britain, the Roman Parthian War. This all happened in the 1st century. So look at all the wars that was going on with Rome in the 1st century, right? and this was during the time of Yahweh Shai. All this was going on. The 2nd century, 3rd century, then you get to the 4th century. This is where Rome was really on its last legs. You see, because I believe Rome fell in like the 450s AD or something like that. But this is in the 300s. Then you get to the 5th century. Okay, this is when they were invaded by the Goths, the Vandals, the Alans, the Huns, the Franks, and other peoples. Okay, all these wars, the Gothic wars, and the final blow was by the Vandals, who actually sacked Rome in the 5th century AD. But look, these are all the wars that Rome was involved in before they ultimately fell in the 5th century AD. You see? All these wars, man. And guess what? America is the same way. Because I got this pulled up as well. All right. Because out of all the time, America hasn't even been a nation for 250 years yet. But they've been at war majority of the time. It says here, this means that the United States has been at war for more than 92% of the time since its birth, making critics view that the rulers of the land found by Christopher Columbus have been addicted to the use of military might and intoxicated with their success against weaker nations that cannot defend themselves for one reason or the other. And Rome was the same way. See, Rome just went around because they had the superior military might. So they just went around conquering the other nations to the point where they had too many enemies. You see, Rome was also oppressing those that were subject, those that were vassals unto it, to the point where the barbarian tribes that were vassals to Rome, they actually rose up and conspired against Rome to take it down. And that's exactly what happened. See, all these other nations that America once bullied and took down, they're conspiring right now to take down America, man. All right, but you see that America has been at war for a majority of the time that it's been a nation. Again, going back to Genesis 27, by the sword shalt thou live. And that's Esau, Edom. So it's plain to see who are the biblical Edomites, okay? Because no other nation can make this claim that, oh, we've been at war majority of the time that we've been a nation. No, only Esau, only Edomite nations can say that, because they are the, their line goes back to Esau, all right? And, Isaac gave Esau that blessing of the sword, that he would live by warfare, you see? And let me bring this out in 2nd Ezra 16-32, and the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her paths shall grow full of thorns, because no man shall travel there through. Okay, so this is synonymous of a time of war, okay, which we are in right now. The earth is being laid waste. Many people are going back to the spirit world, and really, it's really all in vain. Because Esau tells these people, oh, yeah, we got to defend our nation. We got to do this. We got to make sure that the enemy doesn't conquer us. But meanwhile, they going out to the front lines and they're being destroyed for no reason other than to be a pawn for the world banking elite. That's really what's going on here, man. Isaiah 14-17. Matter of fact, let me start at 16. It says, they that see thee, this is talking about Esau in the kingdom. Okay, once this man is abased and he's taken down, and he's at the bottom of all the heathen, right? The nations are going to look at him and say what? Verse 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Verse 17, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with the sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. So that's going to be the latter end of Esau, Edom, okay? Because, hey, the scriptures tell you that you whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So guess what? If you live by war, you going to go out by war. Bottom line, okay? Yeah, that's all Esau is pushed, man, is just death upon the earth. But in the kingdom, that's going to be a proverb, man, to where they're going to look at this devil, okay, because he's going to be chained up. He's going to be in a very low estate. He's going to be all hairy. Esau going to be wearing a damn potato sack for a shirt. You see? He ain't going to have no suit and tie and be clean cut and clean shaven and speak well and eloquent, man. No. He's going to go back to his caveman estate. That's how it's going to be in the kingdom for 1,000 years. Then he's going to be destroyed, Obadiah 1:18. All right, but they're going to look at this man and say, damn, this was the man that made all these wars around the earth and bullied all the nations for hundreds of years. Like him, that's what they're going to say. You know what I'm saying? But that shows you that the contrast that Esau, he's about to be brought very low. You see? So now we go back to Redacted, all right, because they're gonna bring Scott Ritter on here and he's gonna pretty much break down that this whole Ukraine thing is a failure, man, and that it always has been. Let's continue.
The coup in Ukraine, which installed a Western puppet government. She is confident, she told Christiane Amanpour, that Ukraine will get this additional money to launch this new counteroffensive when Congress comes back in session. Listen.
How are you going to make sure Ukraine gets vital weapons and ammunition? Christiane, I have strong confidence that when the House comes back after they've been out in their districts hearing from the American people, after they have heard from Ukraine, they have heard from Europe, which, by the way, just passed $54 billion in additional aid itself, that we will do what we have always done, which is defend democracy and freedom around the world, not just for victims of tyrants like Putin, but in our own interest in preserving a free and open international order. That's what we need to do. We've done it before. And by the way, we have to remember that the bulk of this money is going right back into the U.S. economy to make those weapons, including good-paying jobs in some 40 states across the United States.
To make sense of all of this and these movements and these comments from Zelensky over the weekend, we want to bring in former U.S. Marine, former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter, who's been spot on about this counteroffensive, the failed first counteroffensive last summer. Scott, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So first, I just want to get your assessment of this map and what Zelensky says about a new counteroffensive. So this new counteroffensive is coming. He's telling everyone publicly about it, by the way, which seems like such a ridiculous thing to do. Will it be as successful as the first counteroffensive?
Oh, undoubtedly. It will be as successful as the first counteroffensive, which means that whatever material and whatever personnel he's able to cobble together, if he's able and indeed able to do this, will all be destroyed and they'll all be killed, captured, or wounded. I mean, because that's the end result of the first of this summer counteroffensive of 2023. Minimal territorial gains. That territory which they did capture was part of a Russian strategy of flexible defense, meaning that the Russians were going to give them the territory no matter what, because they're more than happy to trade territory for dead Ukrainian lives. And this is what happened. The Ukrainians didn't penetrate the first major barrier. They all died in the crumple zone of the Russian defenses. And if there ever is a Ukrainian counteroffensive, and just because Zelensky says there will be one doesn't mean there will be one, because the Russians right now are pretty good at interdicting Ukrainian forces as they build up. But when you take a look at this map, Ukraine has lost almost every territorial gain they made and has ceded considerable territory to Russia. So, this counteroffensive has failed. It's Russia that's on the, I guess, counteroffensive.
So look, right, since this war has been ongoing, Ukraine has lost all of the territory that was once a part of Ukraine, okay? Russia has pretty much taken over everything, but they still pumping billions of dollars into this war. And to what end? If you're losing a war miserably, by the way, you have no leverage, you have no army, you have no men left to throw at the enemy. You don't even have artillery to throw at the enemy like that. Russia is just steamrolling through Ukraine. But they still pumping billions of taxpayer dollars into this war. For what purpose, man? For what purpose other than depopulation? You see? And to get people upset to a point where they're going to rise up in civil war against their leaders, man. This is all order out of chaos. Because this doesn't make sense. Why do you continue to fight a war that you know that you can't win? Let's continue.
Right now, and I don't see anything stopping the Russian momentum until this conflict is over. I think that there'll be the occasional counterpunch by Ukraine, but they don't have anything left to counterpunch with. That's the problem.
I read an unbelievable report from a journalist who was in Ukraine recently and left Ukraine and said, what you've been hearing about Ukraine is a total lie. Of course, you're hearing that, everyone's thriving. They're doing just fine. There's no problem with the recruitment numbers. They have the forces that they need. And she pointed out that when you go to different stores, when you go around the city, there are no men anywhere. You won't see men. And the men that there are basically hiding in their homes because if they come out, they are worried about being conscripted almost immediately. The conscription groups go around and try. If people are on their way to work, they will be grabbed and thrown into vehicles and sent to the front lines to be killed. So these poor men are having to try to provide for their families to try to make some sort of money to go to work. If they go to work, they're rounded up and then thrown onto the front lines and then killed. So Zelensky this weekend said that only 30,000 Ukrainians have been killed. The numbers of 300,000 are a total lie, even though the New York Times even points out as many as 500,000 casualties in a report last summer. So Zelensky says nothing to see here, don't worry about it. Yet independently, we know that seems like it's a total lie. What's your assessment of his numbers?
Well, I think one of the big problems facing Zelensky right now is a PR problem, both in Ukraine and abroad. How do you square 500,000 dead? And here's the thing about Zelensky's numbers. We know that there have been 400,000 obituaries for Ukrainian soldiers since the start of this war.
Wow.
We also know that that the Ukrainians have abandoned over 120,000 dead on the battlefield that they call missing. That they, and these haven't been counted in. And the Russians, as they are, taking territory, are finding just the heaps of Ukrainian bodies, both unburied and those where the Ukrainians dump them into a ditch and cover them up. So Zelensky knows that he's suffered horrific casualties. I mean, Zelensky has alluded to this, the need for an immediate 500,000 men. Why? Because they lost 500,000. And this is dead. We're not talking about wounded. Wounded, figure triple that number. We're talking, over 1 million wounded. So, Zelensky's in la la land. He is trying to create this impression, but he's not even fooling himself. I mean, you look at his eyes while he makes a statement, you know that he knows that we know that it's a lie. But this is the PR game that's being played right now so that he can convince the West to continue doubling down on stupid. And there's a meeting, I guess they're assembling a meeting of the top European nations right now. Macron is assembling this for the goal of trying to figure out how to empower Ukraine to do this top secret counteroffensive that nobody's supposed to know about, but everybody apparently does because Zelensky has announced it. So is his Minister of Defense, but we're not talking about it. But I mean, it's obvious. Look, we know that there's several thousand, not tens of thousands, several thousand Ukrainian soldiers being trained right now in Belgium and in other places. The Belgian government has admitted it, and others have as well. There's no doubt in my mind that these forces will be held in some sort of strategic reserve. But the best Ukraine will be able to accumulate, and right now when they speak of a counteroffensive, the talk is that Ukraine will go on a flexible defense throughout 2024 and prepare for a counteroffensive sometime in 2025. They're seeking to replicate what they call the successes of the first phase of this war, where Russia pushed in aggressively and Ukraine, using flexible defense tactics, were able to attrit the Russians down. That's the goal. That's the objective of the Ukrainians. But we need to remember that in 2022, Ukraine had a professional army that had been trained for 7 years by NATO to NATO standards. They all died in this flexible defense. Talk to the Ukrainian soldiers about the situation in May and June of 2022. Everybody was dead. Everybody was wounded. They had nothing left until the United States pumped in $48 billion of Lend-Lease and rebuilt a new Ukrainian army. And then Ukraine's been rebuilding armies ever since because they all die on the battlefield. This isn't the same way. Russia has learned its lessons. Russia will not be rushing forward. There's not going to be any bold advances. Russia is taking a village here, a village there every day, advancing villages, bite by bite by bite. And the Ukrainians have nothing. The Russians have said the Ukrainians cannot solidify a defensive line. They don't have troops. And at some point in time, Zelensky is going to have to take this reserve that he's building up and commit it. And then he'll have nothing for this counteroffensive. There will not be a counteroffensive. It's a fictional fantasy in the mind of Zelensky and his Western supporters.
I mean, at some point, the jig has to be up, right? I mean, you've got nobody left.
And look, the jig is up. You see, they don't have nothing left to fight with. They've lost the narrative. They've lost millions. You see, and they're just printing money out of thin air and throwing it into Ukraine, throwing it into Gaza, throwing it into all these different conflicts. Into what end? See, all America is doing, because this is really a proxy war between America and Russia. Make no mistake about it. Ukraine is not at war with Russia. This is really America, because America is the one funding. Like you just heard Scott Ritter say that Ukraine was done. You see, Ukraine as a war was over with in May of 2022. So you mean to tell me 2.5 to 3 months into a war, you completely got smashed by Russia. And if it wasn't for America sending that 40-something billion over to Ukraine to rebuild the army, to send troops, to send artillery and weaponry in there, Ukraine would have been a lost cause. But you see, it already is. The jig is up, man. You can't continue this on no longer. And eventually what they're going to do is they're going to scrap Ukraine, because at some point there's only but so much, money and weaponry you can throw into a war that's not even, getting you anywhere. You see, like, they're not making no type of progress, man. Like, every inch that they gain, Russia takes 10. You see, every inch that Ukraine gets, Russia takes 10, 20. They taking villages here, villages there. So this whole thing is through, man. This whole Russia-Ukraine war is a complete failure. And there's a movie coming out in April called Civil War. And the Civil War is going to arise because America is going to keep sending money to fund these overseas conflicts. Meanwhile, right here in America, the southern and northern border are wide open. And they not concerned about that. They're concerned about everybody else's problems overseas. So yeah, Civil War is definitely coming to America big time. 2nd Ezra 16 and 18, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? So yeah, this is only the beginning of wars. All right. This is only the beginning. Okay, the beginning of sorrows. Right now, people are in a state of sorrow, man. The mirth is gone from the land. People are hurting out here. People are crying. The love of many is waxing cold. People have less friends than ever. You know what I'm saying? Suicide and murder rate is at an all-time high. Rape is at an all-time high. And these things are only going to get worse. Imagine how much worse it's going to get when there's no food, when there's no water, when the lights go out. Right now, you still have comfortability. Right now, you still have electricity. You can still take a shower, a warm shower at that. You can still go to the market and get food. You can still, travel and have leisure time. We're coming into a time where all this is about to be done. You see, it's not going to be no more comfort, man. It's going to be time to really get it on. And a lot of people are going to perish in these wars that are going to happen. All right. Let me see if I can jump to the part where they speak about. Let me see real quick. If not, I can just play it. You know what? I'll just play it.
At what point?
It's up, Clayton. It's up. I mean, we're looking at look, everybody, Scott, you keep saying it's up. It's up. Defense industries to produce new equipment. But how long does it take to produce new equipment? Ukraine needs an instant army, shake and bake, baby. You need to add water, shake, throw in the microwave, pull it out, and you got a new army. That doesn't exist. You need well-trained troops. They don't have any. They're all dead. You might be able to pull 1,000 out, 1,000 here to get trained up, but Ukraine needs, as Zelensky said, 500,000 right now. They don't have it. They don't have the tanks. They don't have the armored fighting vehicles. They don't have the artillery systems. They don't have the artillery shells. They have nothing. So even if this money materialized, it would not have a strategic impact until the end of 2024, early 2025 at the earliest. But the bottom line is, I can't predict the future, but let's just put it this way. We're in the midst of a presidential election year. I call it the silly season of American.
And that's another good point right there. We're in the midst of an election year, okay, which they've released movies. The main one the brothers have been speaking on through the Spirit Purge election year. Okay, where all kind of hell was breaking loose in the streets. It's chaos. People are unsure. They're scared and afraid. You see? And it's not a coincidence that you have all these wars jumping off. You have these things being set up. It's not a coincidence that they're talking about blackouts and food shortages and, truckers boycotting New York and other states because of what's going on at the southern border. These things are all being set up. These things have all been manufactured by the powers that be. They just waiting on things to play out as they plan. But look, man, people don't understand the magnitude of what's really about to happen. Like if people really understood that their lives were really in danger and in, very serious danger, man, that they would change overnight. But see, is too much distraction, is too much comfort, too much pride here in America, really in the whole of the Western world, man. But Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is about to shake people out of there real soon. Okay, the Lord is about to bring it to your doorstep. All right. This is Isaiah 24:5, man. Cause look, the earth is about to be under severe depopulation. You understand? Severe, man. Okay, with these wars, like I said, the diseases, a lot of that is going around right now. They're gonna be putting people in jail, like they're gonna be offering people suicide. Look, man, as the scriptures say, and I'm gonna read it. Isaiah 24:5, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. Because why? They have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. So basically, these people are wicked. Okay, they don't fear the Most High. They don't regard the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. They do what they want to do. And this is why the earth is defiled. Okay, this is why the earth is rising up against the wickedness that these people are doing. This is why the Lord is bringing judgment to the earth, man. Verse 6, therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. Yeah, so when this is all said and done, you see few men are going to be left. Okay, and even in Ukraine right now, there's no men left in Ukraine. So you already seeing that Isaiah 4:1 happened in certain parts of the earth. And the scriptures speak about that the women shall mourn because their husbands shall die in the wars. Well, this is what you're seeing, because they actually mentioned it in this video. It might be coming up soon, but we don't really have to go there like that. But the point is, Ukraine has been severely depopulated. Okay, there's no men left. All the women, they have no husbands. They're mourning. Okay, this is what the scriptures say would happen. And this is going to come to Babylon the Great. It's coming to America. This is what the men of the Lord continue to warn you of. Okay, 2nd Ezra 16:32. It's like 31. Even so, in those days there shall be 3 or 4 left by them that search their houses with the sword. 32. And the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her paths shall grow full of thorns, because no man shall travel therethrough. Verse 33. The virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. In the wars shall their bridegroom be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. Hear now these things and understand them, ye servants of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So yeah, these are the things that we must understand. That great death is enveloping the earth right now. Okay, and the only way to escape is by being in that secret pavilion, is by having the protection of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Okay, nothing external, nothing carnal is gonna save you. All right, we can close out with this last little portion of this video. I kind of went over the time I wanted to, but it's all good. That's the spirit. Let's continue.
Politics, where common sense and normal thinking just doesn't apply. Do you really think, now that, Donald Trump swamped Nikki Haley in South Carolina, it looks like he's on his way to secure the Republican.
This sort of incremental village by village movement here. We hear, getting F-16s now, and we're going to Jens Stoltenberg, long range weapons attacking into Russia. What will Putin's response be to that? Or have we already seen it? Just the Western media is not covering it. Certain attacks on different supply ships and supply routes that are being supplied by NATO, but we don't ever hear that reporting.
Look, the Russians have made it clear that if NATO directly intervenes into this war, then it's a war between Russia and NATO, and that war will not be fought on Ukraine. It'll be fought in Europe. It's just plain as day. But Russia also has shown through its actions that it will not, even though it calls NATO a party to the conflict by providing weaponry and stuff, that if it's Ukrainian pilots taking off from Ukrainian soil, then the Ukraine will be struck by these weapons. The Russians are winning this war. The Russians have won this war. this war is over. I mean, there's months left of fighting, but the outcome is guaranteed. So Putin is not going to do anything that changes that calculus. He's not going to overreact. He is not going to do something that's precipitous that could draw NATO into this conflict. He's going to continue doing what he does, lay the marker down that there will be fatal consequences for NATO engagement and direct engagement in Ukraine, but also that the other thing he's told the Ukrainians is the longer you continue this ridiculous fantasy of believing that you can fight and prevail against Russia, the more likely it is that when this conflict ends, there won't be a Ukraine. And we're getting to that point, Clayton. Ukraine's finished. I mean, they've lost this war. Now the question is, do they want Black Sea access? I think they've lost that permanently. I don't think the Russians will entertain termination of this conflict if it doesn't have Russia controlling the Black Sea, Odessa, linking up with Transnistria, Russia controlling Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkov. Now Ukraine's lost all of this heavy industry, so it's a rump state. Now, do they want Russia to come in and occupy all of it? And terminate any notion of Ukrainian nationhood? Is this what they want? Because this is what they're going to get. And NATO needs to understand that. But NATO doesn't care. NATO's always been willing to throw Ukraine on the sacrificial block. And Ukraine is being sacrificed. It's up to Ukraine to wake up right now and understand that Zelensky has led them down a path where they are going to lose 40% of their country territorially. And they are going to lose significant aspects of their industry. But if they want anything left to call Ukraine a Ukrainian homeland, they need to be suing for peace right now, not with the Zelensky formula, but turning to the Russians and begging for forgiveness and seeing how merciful Russia can be.
And the scriptures actually say that the Medes, okay, which when you go into the Medes in that context of that scripture, is talking about Russia, but that they shall not regard silver nor gold. Okay, they're not going to pity because you begging for the war to stop. Nah, man, you poked the bear, so now you got to deal with the teeth. You got to deal with the claws. All right, so with that, hopefully this lesson was edifying through the Rakah Kedash. And until next time, Lord willing, shalom to the elect.